pledge each faithful heart. From path arrival speaks of birth to quarantines lost sons. Her children pledge each faithful heart to guard Guyana's lands, to foil the shock of rude invaders who'd violate our earth, to cherish and defend forever the state that gave them birth. We'll forge a nation's mighty soul, construct a nation's queen. Freedom our everlasting goal, courage and truth our aim. Unyielding in our quest for peace, like ancient heroes brave, to strive and never cease, with strength beyond the slave. Guyana plant the glorious virtue, faith, prosperity, joining the universal search for worldwide community. Your people must surrender greed, make you our quality, with one forever changing, with all nations unity.
Marching towards the shining future, courage high, the past is gone. Before coming fear and counting out to grow, the sun has gone. The storm goes dark and glory, through face like a flash and flame, on the Republic of Guyana, glorify Guyana's name. Forward, forward, youthful nation, rang with all the husband's might. May his strength forever gratitude strive, and seizing me for right. From Guyana's face comes summit, to white surface streets they train. Build thy people, dear Guyana, strong, united, loyal, free. My Guyana, my Guyana, my Guyana, my Guyana, Eldorado, rest of all the world away. In my heart wherever I wander, memory enshrined thee. All my hopes and aspirations, all my longings only tie. Everlasting bonds around us as the fleeting years roll by. My Guyana, Eldorado, my Guyana, times unfolding and for my destiny, to redeeming lasting splendor for the years that lost to me, and the dawning of thy glory, oh Lord, long, long night is past. Oh, arise triumphant, glorious, from the ashes of the past. Oh, arise triumphant, glorious, from the ashes of down upon the borders, looking out upon the deep, the great Atlantic flowed into a fury. For a sea at morn, at noon, or entering the crimson sunset's glow, I love thee, I love thee, I love thee. Oh, beautiful Guyana, oh, my lovely native land, oh, dear to me that all the world I see was sunny strong. Oh, down upon the borders, down upon the deep, the great Atlantic flowed into a fury, flowed into a fury. For a sea, at morn, at noon, or entering the crimson sunset's glow, I love thee, I love thee, I love thee. Guyana, I want to serve my country. Guyana, beautiful, happy, and free. Guyana, let's cooperate with our government to help develop Guyana the free. Together, my comrades, we will build our new Guyana, a country where all are equal opportunity. So let us begin now to show loyalty to Guyana by showing love and respect for all that it means. My brothers, my sisters, we will live and die here together. On to one people, one nation, one destiny. For harmonious living, cooperation will be forever. In work and play as we live as strong Guyana, I want to serve my country. Guyana, beautiful, happy, and free. Guyana, let's cooperate with our government to help develop Guyana the free. Well, it's time we serve all the rich lands in the interior. Our natural resources are there in great quantity. And we will do farming and establish towns by the border. With global food so we could fill all their needs. My greatest desire is to serve my country, Guyana, and sincerely help my Guyana to move along. Our government asks us that we study hard and we learn the things that will help Guyana to become strong. Guyana, I want to serve my country. Guyana, beautiful, happy, and free. Guyana, let's cooperate with our government to help develop Guyana the free. To help develop Guyana the free.
You can get meat anywhere, but for the best cuts of chicken, beef, pork, mutton, and lots more, check out T&W Harris Butcher Shop located in the East Rheinveld Market Meat Section. Call us on 609-7168, 641-4494. Ask for Rastaman. T&W Harris Butcher Shop for the best in fresh cut meats and lots more.
Are you hosting an event? Do you need ice, party ice in large or small quantities? Then call us at 622-5933 for the best party ice available. $1,000. Are you hosting an event? Do you need ice, party ice in large or small quantities? Then call us at 622-5933 for the best party ice available. $1,000 per bag. We do delivery. EC Crystals, Sideline Dam, Buxton North. Call to have your orders filled today. Planning a party? Worry no more. We have all the supplies you need. At EC Party Rentals, we have folding chairs, folding tables, square tables, round tables, long tables, short tables, big tables. We have chairs, red chairs, gold chairs, white chairs, crystal chairs, chairs of all type. Throne chairs. What you want, we have. Food warmers, coolers, ice, beverages. At EC Party Rentals, we have what you need to have a good time. You plan the party, we do the work. Call us 622-5933. Easy Party Rentals. Let's keep your party going. Are you looking for tents to rent? Well, look no further. At Easy Party Rentals, Sideline Dam, Boxer North, we have tents in all sizes and colors. All sizes of tents we have. Small tents, big tents, medium tents, extra large tents. Call us on 622-5933. We have what you need. Easy Party Rentals. Big on tents.
To Amsterdam, I think I only get 3 Polari. You see, when the function finish, right? The egg ball keep them people in it. Oh my goodness. And it's like, so we got a whole tub of sauce. It's like, let's have a little, Mr. Amsterdam, everything shine, shine, shine. I haven't gotten to taste anything because, like I said, I just eat 3 Polari. Everybody complimented the stuff. It was tasty. All of them munch down and come back and load up. Certain places you can't go and get proper stuff, but uh, the sauce is more than enough. I appreciate the variety options.
At Lou's Kitchen, it's no idle boast. Call us for the best in Creole food. 653-3205. Lou's, the original Creole.
Hi, hello.
When I ask you where you've been, don't get angry. I know you were with a friend, but that's just a woman. Oh, that's a woman's love. Oh, yes, it is. When I ask you to say you love me, I know you told me just yesterday, but that's just a woman's, oh, a woman's loving way. Deep down in my heart, I know you're true.
Morning, are you morning? Welcome to another program of Guyanese Morning Time. How are you doing? How was you last night? How was you yesterday? How you made out yesterday? How did you cope? What were you able to achieve? Did you achieve any of those goals you set? I would hope you did. Did you find a new route, a new source of finance? I hope you did, because they say money makes the world go wrong, according to Sparrow. I should play the one. I'm gonna play the one for you before I call Mr. Jordan. You can't make love for hungry belly. And money answereth all things. That's what they say. Money answereth all things.
Hello, empty
And you
pockets
can't make
can't
love
buy
for hungry
happiness.
belly.
You were told that money can't buy happiness, that joy and peace has nothing to do with wealth. But if empty pockets could buy happiness, poor people would be laughing to the bank. Poverty doesn't create peace, it creates pressure. Wealth doesn't guarantee happiness, but it secures freedom. And freedom is the soil where joy grows. Money pays for options. Options buy back your time. And time is what makes you live, love, laugh, and thrive without chains. Poverty steals your joy, but wealth multiplies it. Don't choose struggle, choose freedom. Hello, empty pockets can't buy happiness. You were told that money can't buy happiness, that joy and peace has nothing to do with wealth. But if empty pockets could buy happiness, poor people would be laughing to the bank. Poverty doesn't create peace, it creates pressure. Wealth doesn't guarantee happiness, but it secures freedom. And freedom is the soil where joy grows. Money pays for options. Options buy back your time. And time is what makes you live, love, laugh, and thrive without chains. Poverty steals your joy, but wealth multiplies it. Don't choose struggle, choose freedom.
Not choose struggle, choose freedom. Not choose poverty, choose liberation. You got to make that money, but by fair means. You got to make that money, but by fair means. Nathan, yeah, and everybody laugh when they're going to the bank. Some because they're going to the bank to face the pains. Right? Some of us go to the bank to face our pains. Oh God, boy. The bank account might slap me and tell me, you broke where you're coming for. You know what I mean? Yeah, some of us got an issue. But in short, a lot of us like to look at the negatives of messages and so on in most instances, but we are learning to focus on the positives, man. We have to develop that spirit of positivity, not negativism or negativity. You understand what I'm saying? Yeah, we gotta learn to start being positivists, because we need some positives in our lives. You can't get up every morning on the pity party. Sometimes along the way we gotta change that. I grew up hearing old people say words got more in power. And so sometimes we just got to declare it out of faith. They say, declare it. I get y'all a laugh. Years ago, when I was yet developing this space that is now my business space, Club Twilight and so on and so forth, Sideline down Buxton North, I bought this place. It was a cottage. I saw some of those photos that they're going to show you what this place looked like. No. Maybe I'm going to show you. Who knows? I like to inspire people. So that is why I show people a lot of things, and sometimes I discuss a lot of my private matters because I can only teach from a place where I come from. And that is why I show people certain things about me and I tell people certain things about me and how I approach life and so on and so forth. Nevertheless, I bought this place without a cottage. I don't think I could have stood straight under the cottage. Or if I did, I barely had headroom. So I would say it was about 6, 7 feet off the ground, if so far. As I'm almost 6 feet in height. Yeah. I bought this cottage rundown and so on and so forth. And I started making moves. I brought in some contractors and shifted it down to the back of the yard. Most people would see a home being moved on stilts and so on. Mostly on the East Coast. You hardly ever see those things in Georgia. But them boys moved their house and carried down to the back of the yard and set it up and so on. I told them the height I wanted it. It happened that the weather was bad. So I guess it was perhaps around July, August, or May, June. But the weather caught them. And the building was left at a place where it wasn't supposed to be left. It was supposed to go further down in the yard. It was supposed to go closer to one of the boundaries of the yard. But anyhow, it was left there. So what you gonna do? He left there, can't do nothing but it. But I used it for several purposes. I brought my private school. I had a private school in town, and then I brought it to Buxton, utilizing the same location and so on. And so classes were held in that building at the back there and thing, and and so on and so forth. And after I was encouraged to close the school, or I was made, don't let me say I was encouraged to close the school. Let me take responsibility. After I was encouraged to go work with Rupert Rupnarain as Minister of Education in the Ministry of Education there, after the 2015 election, to help to coordinate private schools and PTAs. I in my own self said, if I were to take that job, it becomes a conflict of interest because I'm the owner of a private school. And so to work with the government to coordinate private school and own a private school, I saw it as a conflict of interest. I don't really like conflicts of interest. And so I decided, I discussed it, of course, with my political leaders. And we came to an agreement that I was going to close the school because they were certain that they wanted me employed to do this job and they were going to hire me to do this job and so on and so forth. I heard the story several times. I never worked one day with the ministry, right? I never got the job for whatever reason. I don't know. Up to now, I don't know why I never got the job. Except that maybe, anyhow, don't go down the road. But I never got the job. And so I'm now trying to find myself in terms of creating or recreating an economic stream because I got family to maintain. I got to live. My son was at university at the time as a cash student. I was paying his fees and so on and so forth. And so I'm there, thinking about ways and means of earning and so on because I'm always a self-employed kind of guy. And things weren't moving as quickly as I could because as they showed in my mind, I started eating into my little resources and so on. And I say, you know what, something got to give you, I started with some friends and say, you know what, you see the building at the back there? I'm going to turn it into a short-time place. I'm going to turn it into a short-time place. But Kedaki, how you going to do, Bano? You're a community leader. You're a respected man in the community. And so when you start operating a short-time place, people going to see you differently and so and so and so. Kind of the negatives, let me say, that comes with the idea of a short-time place. I say, wherever you see it as, people gonna see me differently, and credibility and respectability and all of that gonna be diminished and all of that. So, them things don't really pay me bills. They got short time place all around this country, and people just go to them. And right now, I'm concerned about having my bills paid. Why can't do a short time place? And when I first mentioned it, I might have said it jokingly. And then I start seeing all the possibilities. And I look at certain communities along the East Coast, people developing these guest houses and so on. And they're aiding a cause, if I can call it that. People coming from overseas, they get a place to stay and things. And that is how I started working on my back building, as we call it, to create accommodation for people. My focus is not on short time. I mean, despite the fact, and it's short time, whether you like it or not, but not the kind of short time that they were envisaging, or even I allowed myself to think about when they started talking. We now have accommodation there for people who are traveling, who would like a comfortable place to stay for a short period, whether it's a day, a month, definitely not a year, because we don't cater for cooking on the facility and so on and so forth, right? It's like a kind of bread and breakfast service, if you call it that. And I'm sharing that with you because, like I said, old people say words got more than power. I just thought about that and I spoke about it. I put it into the atmosphere. And so I planted a seed, and then that seed started to get watered and tended. And eventually here we are talking about losing Airbnb and so on. So yeah, sometimes we just have to adopt the positive. We have to adopt the positive. As a youngster, I set myself certain goals. By a certain age, I need to be a married man. I wanted to start my family. I needed to own my own home and stuff like that. And I worked to those projections, if I call them that, those declarations. And so sometimes we gotta make positive declarations over our lives, man. And sometimes we gotta write them and revisit them and think, and stop everything we see the negative. Everything we see the negative. Everything we see the negative. Look at the positive. One more example of seeing the positive. As a youngster, when I got the opportunity to buy my first plot of land, it was in the south of the village, section C, what we call Overgate. And Overgate for most people was far, was away from civilization, Overgate. Right? And I got my plot of land to buy there. Overgate, facing the sideline trench, just like this one is facing the sideline trench up front. And I did my thing quietly, I think. And when I told my wife, say, you buy land till behind there for buy? Or who go till behind there go live? Say, you know where it's at, man. This village can only expand the southward. It is already occupied to the east and the west and the north. You can't go further north, you're going into the sea. So we could only go south. If it's not now, eventually people gonna go right down there and live. And I bought that land at a reasonable price. And I live to see behind there, if you were to go behind gate now, as we say, it is as well populated as any other part of Buxton. And people are continuing to go behind there and occupy lands. Ancestral lands, if you call it, yes. Village lands. Families own them. They're still occupying them and they're going south all the time. You have to have a vision. You have to look into the future. You have to declare what your future will be. And stop living in the past and in the present all the time. Can't always allow the past and the present to bog you down. You got to get that attitude of shaking out of the norm. Let me listen to Sparrow. I'll tell you how we're going to listen to Sparrow, no? Sparrow say, no money, no love. Because you can't make love. I know some people that do it. Remember, if you can see that karaoke tomorrow. Tomorrow is Friday. Go down there to Congress Place at the Palm Tea Cafe and Bar. You could sing this one too.
So lovely. What girl? It is getting late. Patsy, don't try to tempt me. You ain't know, but you're testing me, babe. Oh, get away from me. You see, you're too small to do. She said, who you talking to? She said, if anybody too small, it's you. Patsy, you must be crazy. How you gonna make an open statement like that? Maybe you would like to have me lock up making time like Mano with the plastic cat. Yeah, Baba. Whoa. Yeah. Ivy back up, she closed to leave because John was down and out. All alone he was left to grieve. She had an ex-man in South. She said openly, I really love you, Johnny, but you ain't have no money. So what will my future be even though you love me? We can't love without money. We can't make love on hungry belly. Johnny, you'll be the only one I am dreaming of. You're my turtle dove, but no money, no love. Find some money, Johnny. Whipper. If you hear how we plead with she to get you to understand, listen, mister, she tell Johnny, let go me blasted hand and make up your mind. We got to break up this lime. She said poverty is a crime. You got no money, still you're tangling me all the blinking time. We can't love without money. We can't love on hungry belly. Johnny, you'll be the only one I am dreaming of. You're my turtle dove, but no money, no love. Gentlemen, let me tell you plain. She say, I don't want to make a scene, but if you only touch me again, the police will intervene. You ain't got a cent. I couldn't even pay me rent. I had to give up my apartment. You give me nothing to eat, now you want me to sleep on the pavement. We can't love without money. No, we can't make love on hungry belly. Johnny, you'll be the only one I am dreaming of. You're my turtle dove, but no money, no love. Oh, yeah. Johnny nearly killed she with blows. Oh, Ivy ball like a cow. Rip off she wig and it tear down she clothes. The South man I want she know. Oh Lord, what a fight. They roll until broad daylight. Charlotte Street was hot that night. She gets some good lick, but she let go some kick and some bite. Singing, we can't love without money. We can't make love on hungry belly. Johnny, you'll be the only one I am dreaming of. You're my turtle dove, but no money, no love. Yeah, mama. Find some money, Johnny.
Hello, Kadaki. Good morning. I am well, I am well. I'm like the weather, hot. Johnny? Who's Johnny? Oh, that could happen too. That could happen too. I mean, I was just discussing with my grandson. It's about satisfaction and satisfying, So you can't make it on hungry belly, Depends on the satisfaction or satisfying.
All right. You must know.
Yes.
You're the specialist. You're let's say young dogs and experienced drakes. I guess you're the experienced drakes, so you could teach.
Exactly. Anyway, thankful towards you, man. Thankful towards you. Another scorching day, it looks like. We may as well enjoy the heat while it's here, because clearly we are in for perhaps a very wet December, January. Yeah, so it's good to be in the land of the living, because, as we say, many didn't make it between last week Thursday and this week Thursday. And one of them who didn't make it is a good friend of mine and a well-known Guyanese, Dennis Collison. I got a bit of sad news yesterday from a close friend of mine, who indicated that his life would have been ended at 3 o'clock yesterday afternoon when they were scheduled to pull the plug. Another victim of that dreaded disease. I last saw Dennis. I don't know if you know Dennis, but Dennis Collison, from a long line of Collison's athletes and so on. Dennis was part of the famous or infamous 1976 team, Ghana team, to the Montreal Olympics that was pulled by the then government in support of South Africa and Zimbabwe and so on against apartheid. And yes, he was part of in fact, that 76 team to the Olympics might have been the best team we have ever assembled going to Olympics. I think it was an 18-person team. And it had people who were highly favored to win medals. One of whom was James Wren Gilkes, if you remember, James Wren Gilkes, who was doing pretty well during that year and the year before, leading up to the Olympics. And he was slated to medal in the 200 meters and even the 100 meters against the likes of Don Quarry from Jamaica, Hazley Crawford from Trinidad, and so. And we had a really powerful potential 4x100 relay team. People like Schultz, Ren Jilks, Pepe Beaton, Dennis Collison, and others, 4x100. And in fact, Dennis was also slated to run the 4x400 meters relay. Unfortunately, the team was pulled, and no medals. In fact, also, while I'm at it, I remember the boxing team, one of the best boxing teams we have ever been able to put together. Going to any Olympics, people like Kenny Bristol, if you remember Kenny Bristol, Cleveland Denny, who went on to become world champion, but under the Canadian flag, right? I think Cleveland hailed from Myconi, if I remembered well. People like Mark Harris, Evan Paris, a wonderful team, boxing team, going to the Olympics. Yeah, so it was one of the finest teams we were able to put together that never was, in a sense. Dennis was married to June Marcia Griffith, another great athlete, one of our greatest women athletes out of Guyana, and a Buxtonian as well. But I don't think she was in the 1976 team. I think she went to the 1980 and 84 Olympics and perhaps even the 88 Olympics, along with people like Jennifer Innes. Yeah, so we, in putting this together, we have produced some good athletes. I can't use the word great because they might have excelled locally, perhaps regionally, but in terms of their medal count and so on, it's not there. But yesterday I was reading an editorial from Starbuck News in which they were praising the efforts of the squash team in putting together a Hall of Fame for local squash players. And I was reading some of the names and I said, yes, I remember some of those names like McDeasy, Colleen Braffett, and so on. Great um, um, squash players, even one of our Rhodes scholars was named among the greats coming out of Guyana. And they are doing a wonderful thing. And it's to the eternal shame of the government, all governments, who have relegated sports. They talk about sport, but they have relegated sports. Whereas places like Trinidad and Jamaica, of course, have put sports to the top, and sports doing well for them internationally, regionally, and so on. We have not given sports the kind of attention, but we seek the glory. The politicians seek the glory whenever there is something to share, but they're never there to help those sports people, whether traveling, whether with some employment opportunity, so that they can do their regular exercises and training and so on, right? And worst of all, we have never identified a place that we could call a National Hall of Fame, because we have so many sports people. Cycling, we had people like Hunt, and Toussaint, and so on. All the different sports, cricket, of course, they've paid a lot of attention, a lot of money poured into cricket. Football, and so on. Athletics, we have good. Boxing is perhaps where we have medaled and we have had world champions, and all the other different sports. So it's time that we get a National Hall of Fame in which we can recognize some of the greats in the various sports and stop talking and start doing, essentially, and take a page out of the squash people's page, um, and get a National Hall of Fame where we can honor the likes of the Marcia Griffiths and the Jennifer Innes and the Dennis Collisons and all those who made tremendous sacrifice just to put Guyana on the international map. You know, Dennis also had a son, Darren, who played in the NBA for various teams in the NBA. He is retired now. So, Dennis, my friend, last time I saw you was last year at the Labor Day in New York, and that's how life goes. So, rest in peace. Condolences to his wife, children, uh, relatives, and so on, and friends, and so on. And travel well, my friend. Travel well to the ancestors. You had a good life. I know you can't complain. I know you can't complain. You had a good life, and we all got to go. And when we go in, make certain that we have made peace with ourselves and all those who we would have uh, wronged or righted or so on. All right, Dennis. So go with God. Right. So Sunday gone, we witnessed the commission of the new bridge, the new Demerara Harbor Bridge. And the date, of course, October the 5th, that was chosen because in the eyes of the PPP, that's when democracy started in Guyana. Nothing apparently existed before then, of course, unless it's pre-1964, when again they were in power, when the Jagan government was in power. But October the 5th, I was surprised that they didn't use October the 5th for the elections for 2025. But then maybe they were keeping it for the bridge. Who knows? And there, of course, we witness all the partisan approach and every attempt to wipe history of the PNC off the map. And they're proceeding with haste to dismantle the old. I have said on this program before that we're seeking to destroy a monument, whereas in other places, they maintain their monuments and they make money off of them. A lot of us live here and go to United States and visit all kinds of places that have been advertised. And they have been able to keep their monuments and their places in pristine condition. And you pay a whole set of money to go there and do it. A lot of us even leave to go places in the Caribbean, Barbados, Jamaica, right? And so on. The Bob Marley Museum and other different places where we pay to go. They're not free. You pay to go there. But here we have what was at one time the longest floating bridge. And we're seeking to dismantle it instead of it becoming now a monument to creativity and what is possible. We just seem to want to rip up our history or discard it, especially if that history has anything to do with the PNC. But let us be very clear in terms of things that were not said on Sunday gone. In the partisan, you have perhaps one of the largest crowd assembled in recent history in Guyana. And all you can give them is a partisan display. A government that is a mere 1 month old can give people a partisan display instead of a national display in opening a national piece of infrastructure. So let's fill some gaps. The PNC has always been uniting this country, whether it's by bridges or any other of its programs. Ever since it came out of the strife and the riots of 1964, you just have to listen to Burnham and his conciliatory speeches and all of his efforts to unite a country that has always been racked by division. And no matter whatever they say about that man, he has always put Guyana first. And of all the efforts at planning in this country, it is only the PNC that has ever produced any development plans in this country. Not talking here about development strategy. We're talking about development plans. And you have heard me talk more than one time on this program that it was the PNC who were able to produce 2.5 development plans. The first, Sorata Lewis plan. The second, Kenneth King FCH plan, Feed, Clothes, and House Yourself by 1976. And there was a start of a third plan, the Wilfred David plan, that didn't get very far, ostensibly because at that time Guyana had run into serious economic difficulties, which is not a reason not to plan. But by then, it was more survival than anything else. And in plans of the PNC development plans, you will see great efforts at uniting a country that was not only divided geographically, but divided demographically. And in those plans, you can see and relate to places like the Linden-Soesdijk Highway, the Quarantine Highway, as remarkable pieces of infrastructure, the finest roads ever built in this country. Then and now, incomparable roads built at a time when the technology for building roads today was not available, but superbly done. And it was under the PNC, when you're talking about bridges and uniting people, that, for example, the Kanji Bridge was built. Before then, you had the Kanji Swing Bridge. But you then had a modern bridge that is still there today. Testimony to the efforts of the PNC government that didn't have monies that are available today. And it was that same PNC government at the time when the sugar prices had dramatically fallen after giving promises in 1977. It was the PNC that opened the longest floating bridge on July the 2nd, 1978, bridging the divide caused by the Demerara River between the east bank and west bank of Demerara. And also on the west bank, bringing the coast and even the Essequibo Coast Islands and so on closer to the capital city. It was a marvelous piece of engineering led by the indomitable, now deceased, Joseph Waldo. You know, that is, as an aside, it always bothers me how we award people, because Holder died when he was only awarded an Arrow of Achievement. But for his excellence in engineering, he should have been given a CCH. Compared to the number of people who have got CCH and their achievements, if any at all, cannot compare with the likes of Holder. And the extolling of the virtues of the former prominent secretary last week or week before the last. They died with an AA. That's an aside. There are more to be said on that at some other time. But yes, the ingenuity of Joseph Holder, working with the team from Britain and so on, to produce that bridge that should have lasted for 10 years, but lasted up to today. Because it's still ready to go. It's still ready to go and should remain there as a lasting monument to the engineering feat and ingenuity of the Guyanese people. But instead, they want to rip it up and carry pieces all over the country, as if those communities in which they will carry it shouldn't also be brides instead of bridesmaids. In other words, taking what you call second-hand things instead of their communities looking forward to new things. And we should have the people from the culture society and all these different societies to lobby for the maintenance of the bridge in the place it is, rather than removing the bridge. We didn't remove the Abari Bridge, the old Abari Bridge that was built for the railway. We didn't remove the Abari Bridge. It stands there as a monument, unfortunately, not well kept, of what was achieved. So the Abari Bridge stands alongside the bridge that you have there. The Mahaika Bridge, also, I believe, stands alongside. We didn't just get rid of it. We didn't get rid of it. And when we wanted to knock down and use as garbage the murals that were painted at the Timeri airport, the cultural people came up and said no. And so it was carefully removed to be reset in the context of the renovation of the airport. I've been all over the place in the United States and I've seen them with their different battleships and all these different colonial places that have been preserved. And the history is told. But we want to rip up the longest floating bridge and say about how we carrying it pieces to other places. No sense of history, no sense of culture. But every sense that we must get rid of anything PNC, and in particular Burnham. And so continuing with the bridging and our efforts at bridging, very soon after the coalition government came into power in 2015, we started to examine the modernization of the country. And as told in our first budget and elaborated in our second budget, we talked about bridging the coastland with the hinterland through roads, bridges, boats, and so on. And one recalls that the contract for the feasibility study and design of the new Demerara Harbor Bridge was awarded in December of 2016 to the Dutch firm Livingston CSO. This is the very contract. This is the very contract that the PPP government, after August 2020 in their installation, sought to have David Patterson charged, and it's still before the courts. But this is the same contract that the PPP, the same study and design that the PPP has used to defend themselves against attacks that no study was done for the existing bridge. And that is true. The study that Livingston did was in respect of the bridge that should have been sited at Houston. The study was in respect of a 3-lane bridge. The bridge that was commissioned on Sunday varies from the bridge that was to be built at Houston. It's a 4-lane bridge, that's the first thing. It's far more costly. And so on. And this is the same study that the present government uses to justify its failure to conduct an environmental impact assessment. But they have former Minister of Infrastructure David Patterson before the court about this study. And that matter is still in the court. But that is something we hope can be settled fairly speedily, notwithstanding the length of time it has been in there. This bridge, if you all remember well, tenders for its design, build, and finance went out under the 2020 government. Well, still the PPP government. Those tenders went out in 2021. The tenders for the new Demerara Harbor Bridge in its present location went out under the model called a design, build, and finance, a DFB model. Under this model, there were 9 firms that were pre-qualified after the tenders went out. 9 firms were pre-qualified. You see, you have to, this is the part that they ain't gonna remind you to remember, but you have to bring it in because everything must be in context. 9 firms were pre-qualified and they were invited to submit bids for this DBF model, right? Design, build, finance, or design, build, finance, operate, and maintain. So those were the 2 models. These 9 firms could determine which one they want. At all times, when the tenders went out, it was the tenderer who was going to finance, who was going to design the bridge, finance it, operate it, maintain it, and so on. Okay? So when you put the model out there, John Jones is going to decide whether he will tender under the criteria that is set out there. John Jones will figure out how he will find the financing. John Jones will figure out whether he has the capacity to design the bridge. John Jones will figure out whether he has the capacity to build the bridge, whether he has the capacity to operate, so that will be the model out there. Jane Austen may decide, I'm not bidding because I don't have those, I can't meet those criteria. You see what I mean here? In other words, the point I'm making is, if you put out these characteristics in a tender, these criteria in a tender, then certain firms will react to it and certain firms will not react to it. So they had 9 firms that were pre-qualified and then invited to bid. Okay. The firm that won or was ranked number 1 under this model was the China State Construction Engineering Company Corporation Limited. China State Construction Engineering Corporation Limited. Okay? And they set out to negotiate with this firm. This China State Construction Engineering Company Limited had put in a bid at $256.6 million US dollars. $256.6 million US dollars. They had put in the bid, and the government started negotiation with this firm. Eventually, negotiations broke down. And the government moved to the second-ranked bidder, which is the one that built the bridge. China Railway Construction Corporation International Limited, in a joint venture with a number of other firms, with 3 other Chinese firms. And then this firm came in at roughly 262 million US. 262 million US. As an aside, they keep saying the bridge cost 262 million. The bridge doesn't cost 262 million. It's more like what somebody wrote in the papers 2 days ago. I'll reference that. It's more like roughly 300 and something million for the bridge, because the whole cost of the bridge has to include the approaches on the east side, on the west side. It has to include all the legal and other fees that were taken. It has to include all of the compensation paid to remove people who are in the alignment with the bridge, including my cousin, who I think is still in court with them over the compensation. But anyway, back to this firm. The firm bid 262.5 million or 262.5 or $0.2 million. In the midst of the negotiations, remember, this model was a design, build, finance. In other words, then, China State Corporation, China Railway Construction Corporation, had to find the financing. But guess what? The government, in the midst of the negotiation, announced that the government had taken a loan of $160.8 million from the Bank of China to finance the very bridge. So here, what is happening here? The government takes the loan. The government takes on the responsibility of finding the financing from the Bank of China for $160.8 million. And the government then takes on the responsibility of putting in the rest of the money from the treasury. So the model that was in the tender of design, build, finance was suddenly changed. So the whole structuring was altered significantly. Because if the government was saying I can find $262 million. And if they had put that in the tender that the government will be financing the bridge, I will almost guarantee you that the cost of building that bridge would have been cheaper. That's number one. And number two, it would have invited even more bidders. Because one thing would have frightened bidders off is the fact that they would have had to find the financing. And with a country that has no credit rating, because no agency rates us, we don't subscribe to any of the well-known credit agencies. So we don't have a credit rating. A country without a credit rating and asking a firm to go and find the financing wouldn't have too many takers. But if the government is saying, if the government is inviting firms to bid, and in the bid documents it states that the government will finance the bridge, and includes an engineer's estimate, then I will guarantee you, you will have more bidders, especially from well-known places like Netherlands, Britain, United States, France, Germany, all those places that are known for building bridges, including China. But the government didn't do that. The government, in the midst of negotiating with the people who built this bridge, took over the financing of the bridge. And the procurement agency, the procurement commission, nobody ever said anything about it. The Auditor General never said anything about it. Because procurement is supposed to be a competitive thing. And all of us knows, if we are going to finance it, then you're going to have a lot of takers. If you're asking the bidders to finance it, then you're going to have few takers. Few. I remember when, in our case, when we had put out tenders for the bridge, along a similar model, and they were about 30-something responses, I believe. And we had put out for a 2-lane, and there were about 30-something responses, some of them for 3-lane. And I think 2 or 3 of them was for 4-lane. And it didn't reach anywhere near 260-something million US at that time. But a number of the people were under the impression that we, the government, were going to finance the bridge. Because when it pared down, when it began to pare down and so on, and you start having discussions, a lot of people fell out because they then realized that it's they who have to go and find the financing. Well, that will always be the difference. If you're asking me to go and find this financing, it means that I'm taking the risk. I am taking the risk. And you're asking me to take a risk for a country that doesn't have a credit rating. A country that had defaulted on loans in the past. And all of that. So the built-in premium, even if I decided to go and find the financing, the built-in premium under those conditions will be substantially large. And so the cost of the bridge will be way in excess of what it will be were the government to initially state that we will be financing the bridge. So that 262 million, many people are suggesting, was excessive, that the bridge could have been built for less. And that's just the structure. We're not talking about the ancillary things like the approaches and so on, because all that has to be added into the bridge for its final cost. So it's one of the areas that still has to be investigated as to why the government suddenly switched in the midst of negotiations to taking a loan plus financing the rest from the treasury, and why this had not been thing. It's the same situation, or not same, but similar. I have repeated umpteen times about that Ogle Road. That Ogle Road, the government of India put up $50 million. 1 point something was used for studies, leaving 48 point something million. The engineers' estimates for the road was identical to the balance that was left on that loan. Yet still that road was awarded for 100 and ended up awarded for 100 and I think it's 130 million US dollars to the same Indian company. So you got some very strange things in that procurement sector. And those are among some of the strangest that I've come across and still defy explanations. But anyway, so you have that. You have that situation, and so the bridge was built. It missed one deadline, second deadline, third deadline. The last deadline should have been August. But anyhow, ultimately it opened October the 5th. Rush for October the 5th because October the 5th is a significant date for the PPP. But a bridge that was incomplete. And we saw the chaos money gone on the west side coming in. And now you're hearing that it will take 2 weeks for them to complete the approaches. And one wonders with these hastes to complete this infrastructure, whether this infrastructure is actually settling, curing, and so on, given the high volume of traffic that will be traversing the bridge and its approaches. One wonders what was ace in meeting the October the 5th date when the bridge wasn't ready to be opened. One wondered anyhow, even if you wanted to commission it on the 8th, why you didn't wait 2-3 weeks afterwards to fully open the bridge? And why the old bridge couldn't be used in the meantime to take off light traffic. And then, of course, there was this magical moment when, out of the blue, at least for those who are listening and those who are there, you suddenly hear that this bridge, this new Demerara Harbor Bridge, will have an appellation to it, the name of a politician, a living politician, whose presidency, historical as it was, because he will probably end up being the only president who has served more than 10 years, because the Constitution now says two terms of 5, and he served 12 and a half, including 2.5 of Janet Jagan's term. Whose presidency, especially I think the second 5 years, not counting the 2.5, or I think it's the fourth, was mired in controversy. In fact, some argue that it was one of the most blood-stained presidency in the modern Guyana. Former President Granger called it the Troubles. You hear Ali at Sunday's thing says his track record needs no whatever the word he used at the time. But it is known that he has a track record in the economic sphere that is questionable. In fact, some people said if you really wanted to name something after him, then the Skeldon estate stood as a monument to a colossal failure. His presidency also was one in which the issue of ideological racism was raised, a matter that found its way in the courts, well, but which apparently was settled outside the courts. So this naming of the bridge after a living controversial politician has attracted a lot of commentary. I just want to reference two. The first appeared in a letter to the editor of the Stabroek News of October the 7th, 2025, under the caption, "Bewildered by the name of the new bridge," signed by one Keith Bernard. He expressed profound bewilderment at the decision to name the new Demerara Harbor Bridge, an infrastructural landmark valued at approximately US $365 million, after a politician. He said that political figures are inevitably associated with partisanship and different loyalties, regardless of their accomplishments. He claimed that to attach the name of a politician to a project of such national importance risks diminishing its unifying spirit by imposing upon it the weight of political identity. He concluded that rather than serving as a monument to an individual, the bridge should stand as a tribute to the ingenuity, resilience, and cooperative spirit of the Guyanese people. A name that reflects these ideals rather than political legacy will be more fitting for a structure whose primary purpose is to connect rather than divide. Well said, well said, well said indeed, Mr. Bernard, right? And there was also a letter to the editor on Stabroek News, October the 8th. That will be yesterday, 2025. Under the headline, "Unilateral Naming of Bridge Erodes Integrity of Public Sector Governance," by one Nandrani Singh. She complained that the naming of the new Demerara Harbor Bridge was done without public consultation, parliamentary debate, or any transparent process. It raises serious questions about governance, accountability, and the politicization of national infrastructure. She argued that naming a national asset after a sitting government official, especially one with active executive influence, undermines the principle of impartiality in public service. It breaches public trust. She warned about the creeping normalization of government overreach. And she ended by urging civil society, the media, and every Guyanese citizen to seek transparency regarding the process by which the name was selected and to advocate for a more principled, inclusive approach to naming public infrastructure. Naming national assets in general and naming them after politicians in particular will always generate controversy. Will always generate controversy. You know, I recall when the old Demerara Harbor Bridge was being commissioned, there was an Action Line program. Don't remember how many of you remember Action Line. There was a program called Action Line on GBC, Guyana Broadcasting Corporation. And I think that one was hosted either by Prince Mason or Clem David, both of whom are deceased right now. Very good announcers. They don't make them like them anymore. They don't make them like them anymore. Very well. In which, on the Action Line program, the public was invited to suggest names for the bridge. And I distinctly recall one caller cheekily saying that since Forbes Burnham had named places after himself and his children, for example, Linden, Burnham Drive, Roxanne Burnham Gardens, and Melanie Damichano, and that nothing was named for his wife, that he suggested that the Demerara Harbor Bridge should be named Viola's Passage. Of course, that call was promptly cut off, but perhaps too late with his suggestion. As an aside though, in a letter in the Stabroek News of May the 1st, 2013, under how Linden got its name, Hamilton Green recalled that when attaining Republican status, it was decided that the three areas, Mackenzie, Wismar, and Christianburg, should be elevated to the status of a town. But in doing so, no one suggested a name for this new town. He said that it was he, Hammy Green, over a game of dominoes with Carl Degar, who was the manager of Singer's Sewing Machine in Mackenzie, and Joseph Aaron, who was a member of parliament. It was he, Hammy Green, who suggested naming the area after former President Lyndon Forbes Sampson Burnham. And apparently, this suggestion was kicked up to the relevant authorities, and eventually it was accepted. He also indicated that in a similar way, Kelly Dam, when it was extended eastward and upgraded, was named Carifesta Avenue. The then mayor was Beryl Simon, and the commissioner of police was Carl Bobo Austin. I can also recall, with all this controversy, I recall, for example, how they suddenly wake up and put the dead Teddy Jagon in pickle. You know, Teddy was a very humble and simple individual who wanted nothing named after him, who was not an ostentatious person, and lived a very simple life. But as soon as he died, his progeny ran out to name all kinds of things after him. You had the dental school, Teddy Jagon Dental School. I remember even Mayor Hamilton Green tried to rename part of High Street, where the Red House is. Tried to rename part of that street after Cherry Jagon, and the PPP obviously would have none of it because, of course, it's coming from a PNC politician who had been despised, who continues to be despised by them. They'll have none of it. But they ran out to rename Timeri Airport, which was named in honor of our indigenous people, our first peoples. And Timeri come from the Timeri rock paintings, aligned with the indigenous people. They ran out to rename Timeri Airport Cherry Jagon International Airport, against the objections of so many people in society. In their haste, no one sought to check that the name Timeri International Airport was legislated. It was in legislation. And so they had to fall back and go to Parliament to change the legislation from Timeri Airport to Cherry Jagon International Airport, Timeri. Y'all remember that? But that is technically the official name of Cherry Jagon International Airport, Cherry Jagon International Airport, Timeri. But do you see that name when you're coming off the airport? Do you see Timeri in the name? Do you see the word Timeri in any name to do with Cherry Jagon International Airport? Timeri has died. But it will live on in my memory because that is the only name I use for that airport, Timeri International Airport. They have done Cherry Jagon a disservice by plucking the name, by removing the name associated with our indigenous people to put Cherry Jagon's name here. And if he were alive, he would never have agreed to it. Never. He would have never agreed to it. So the name Timeri that is supposed to be in the airport, you check your tickets, you check the airport name, big name, emblazoned when you come off the thing and so on, the word Timeri is not there. And that was the intent all along. That was the intent all along. And one has to be very wary of this new constitutional reform because for all the time that I am aware, they were seeking to get the word cooperative out of the name of Guyana. And I hope there will be heavy pushback against such a thing. In fact, when we came in, our official name was not even being used by the United Nations. We were just being called Republic of Guyana because that was what the PPP was doing for the 20-something years that they were in power. Calling Guyana the Republic of Guyana instead of the Cooperative Republic of Guyana. And to his credit, as soon as President Granger came in, he made it official, or he reiterated all correspondence going out in the name of the government of Guyana must have Cooperative Republic of Guyana. Why do we have to go to these lengths? Why do we have to go to these lengths? Yeah? When in early 1970s we became a republic and we had instituted the orders and it was agreed that both Cherry and Forbes will get the Order of Excellence, our highest award. Jagon refused the OE and Barnum alone for a long time with the OE. Because again, awards and trappings and so on was not his thing. But guess what? When he died, not only did they seek not to award him the OE, but they went to Parliament and created a separate award. People think that the Order of Excellence is the highest award in Guyana. It's not so. the PPP went to Parliament and created a separate award called the Order of Liberation, higher than the OE, and awarded it to the dead Cherry Jagan. And he will be the only awardee of this award. That's how much they want to rewrite and write out anything to do with the PNC. Don't see any pushback, but hey, that's CP and their feelings insofar there. But yes, people think the OE is our highest award. No, it's this OL, because they made the OL higher than the OE. So that Teddy will be higher than Burnham. And one can't help but think. One can't help but think that when they're sharing out brickbats and so on, and criticisms and all things, it's only reserved for PNC or PNC related people. Because you hear some noise, but the usual suspects did not come out objecting to the naming of a living politician, controversial as he is, attaching his name to the bridge. Because being a member of that cabinet, I recall that in 2017, then President Granger was criticized for his decision to name and rename several institutions and landmarks, with many perceiving them to be politically motivated and divisive. I don't know what was divisive about what he was doing, but they went after him. It drew backlash from various groups, not least of which was the PPP, who accused Granger of creating a cult of personality. That is what the PPP did. They accused Granger of creating a cult of personality. So what is the PPP doing now? They also accused Granger at that time of disrespecting national institutions. Others, like the PSC, the Private Sector Commission, saw these decisions as heavy-handed and an undemocratic approach to governance. In fact, when President Granger attempted to rename Ogle International Airport to Eugene F. Correa International Airport, the PSC resisted. The PSC resisted, and the Aircraft Association went to court. The matter went all the way to the Caribbean Court of Justice. Yes, that matter went all the way to the Caribbean Court of Justice. And happily, the private sector and the Aircraft Association, all of them, they lost. And interestingly, those who argued at the CCJ about the name change and who were challenging the government claim that it is the public authority's public duty to consult those interested before taking a decision that can impact them in a variety of ways. Yes. So let us ask the question. Who did the PPPC government consult before naming the new Demerara Harbor Bridge? Who did they consult? And it is clear that when President Ali made the announcement, it didn't come as a surprise to the individual whose name is now attached to the bridge. He had to consent to his name going to the bridge. Who else did President Ali consult? Nothing that we are aware of. As Ms. Nandrani Singh says, who did he consult? Was there a parliamentary debate? This is a national infrastructure. This is not a private infrastructure. This infrastructure is one where they took 160 something million US dollar loan. Taxpayers' money will have to repay it. It's not a private donation. It's not a private donation that built the bridge. Who did the president consult? Or does he think he has the power to wake up and name? They cussed Granger out, remember? Cuss him out. Personality cult. Undemocratic. But now, no one is cussing Ali out. Certainly not the usual suspects. Which always leads you to believe, is this about naming or about who? About who? The usual suspects are not coming up and saying, no, if we did it to Granger, we must do it to you. Who did you consult to name that bridge? Public property, a public landmark. And as I said, they couldn't wake up and just name the bridge Barry Jack Dio Bridge. They had to consult with him. And he had to agree for his name to be put there. So, my recommendation is that to avoid the contentious renaming of buildings, institutions, streets, etc., especially after politicians and political figures a national committee to manage place naming should be established. A national committee to manage place naming should be established. Such a committee is expected to promote consistency, accuracy, and community involvement in the naming process. Further, such a committee can ensure transparency, provide guidelines, and handle the complex cultural and historical considerations involved in naming or renaming places. Right? You know, this would avoid us, for example, waking up to find out that the completed Wismar Mackenzie Bridge is now named Samuel Hines Wismar Mackenzie Bridge. Or the soon to be built Borby's Bridge, New Borby's Bridge, is now named Muhammad Orphan Ali New Borby's River Bridge. After all, you heard names like Carter, Martin Carter, and Dave Martins. Names floated very early to be named for the new structure. But these were apparently ignored or discarded. But I hope this committee that I'm talking about, because it's not only about the bridges, there are a number of new streets that have been new schemes, new streets, and so on that have been built for which there are no names. And it's the ingenuity and the familiarity of the postman or postwoman to get your mail to these places. But consider the fact that you may have an important communication letter from, say, one of the embassies or someplace, and the postman can't find this address. They don't know, they're not aware. This is not on the gazetteer, or so on. It is time that, first of all, these new streets and so on, it is time that the names, that we have a naming committee to name all these. And it's time also this committee will look at names in the context of cultural history and so on, and where appropriate, rename certain places and streets that still carry odious names or names of persons whose history we should well leave behind rather than continuing into the future, as was done in the case of Maury Street, that was named after, I think, Governor Maury, who was there when all the hangings took place on parade ground. And that is now named Kwamina Street. But I'm not sanguine. I'm not sanguine at all that my suggestion will be taken up. Why? You see, like so many committees, commissions, and so on that we have put before, it can very well be infested with partisan political persons and behavior. So even if they took up the suggestion and they name it, they want to pack it. They want to pack it with what we call yes men and yes women. And that defeats the whole purpose of national. And I'm not sanguine because such a committee can quickly become moribund, victim of the oppressive preserve or intervention of the government. And none more so than the National Awards Committee. I don't know, I can't remember what is its official name, but this is the committee that is supposed to meet and recommend awards, various awards, people. The government of Ali 2020 to 2025 has a dubious distinction, I believe, of being the only government that never had national awards any year. Any year. And it seems as if they will continue in this regard. So the sacrifices and so on of the various persons in society who are eligible for such awards will go unnoticed. What a country. What a country. What a country. And this committee or National Awards Committee is supposed to be chaired by the Chancellor. But yet, for the 2020-2025 period, there have been no national awards. And this situation had occurred under Jaglio's presidency also, where there was rarely that event. It happened, but it happened rarely. It is only under President Granger that every year there was an event, there was naming, and there was ceremony. I must say up front, I didn't agree with several of those who got awards, but that is another story. The fact is that the event took place. The event took place. So I'm not sanguine. And finally, I'm not sanguine because the PPP government doesn't have a track record of consulting widely. Doesn't have a track record of consulting widely. So, but the suggestion has been made. I have put it out there. It is time we get a national committee that looks at, there are a number of places to be named or renamed and so on, and it's time we looked at that. So I put two major suggestions so far for the morning, I have talked about getting us a National Hall of Fame to honor our athletes. And of course, a national committee, let us call it a national naming committee. You could come up with another name if you want, that will look at the naming and renaming of these different places. Finally, on this bridge story, I asked my former minister friend whether he was able to discern whether the new bridge has been gazetted. At the time of this live here, I hadn't have a response from him. But I would hope that this bridge has been gazetted. You see, what many of you may not have known is that the old Demerara Harbor Bridge was governed by several pieces of legislation. Yes, you think it's just a bridge that was put down there? No. It was governed by several pieces of legislation. And I could go through them for you. The first piece of legislation was bylaws made under the Roads Act, Chapter 5101, number 4 of 1978. And it was cited as the Roads Demerara Harbor Bridge Bylaws 1978. And those bylaws, 11 pages of it, set out all the different definitions and operations and whatnot of the bridge and so on, and responsibility and so on. Then you had regulations made under the Roads Act, Chapter 5101, number 11 of 1978. And this was cited as the Demerara Harbor Bridge Regulations 1978. Then you had the Demerara Harbor Bridge Corporation Act 2003, Act number 2 of 2003. So those are the three pieces of legislation that govern the operations, maintenance, and so on of the Demerara Harbor Bridge, tolls and all this kind of stuff. Those are the three. And of course, you know, in the case of the Borbridge Bridge, the existing one, there's the Borbridge Bridge River Act 2006, Act number 3 of 2006, that governs the operations of the Borbridge Bridge. So I asked, what piece or pieces of legislation governs this new bridge? I asked that in the context of the fact that the old bridge had these different pieces of legislation. And I would imagine that they weren't there just for show, but they had to have some particular purpose why they were put there. And it would seem with the coming on stream of the Wismar-Mackenzie Bridge, the new Borbridge Bridge that is being contemplated, the Kurupikari Bridge that is being contemplated, and whichever else bridge that is being contemplated, that I will make my third major suggestion for today, that the government create a National Bridges Authority, NBA. Nice acronym, isn't it? A National Bridges Authority that will be responsible for, among other things, the safety, maintenance, and management of bridges that fall within the jurisdiction, right? It will be responsible for regular inspection of bridges. It will be responsible for ensuring the structural integrity of the bridges. It will be responsible for managing traffic flows. It will be responsible for overseeing construction projects. It will be able to perform technical studies and surveys. It should be able to develop strategies for bridge longevity and public safety. And in doing all of this, it should coordinate with government agencies, engineers, and contractors for the purpose of achieving these goals, right? And as I said, I could think about 10 bridges that can immediately fall, 10 major bridges that can immediately fall on the jurisdiction of this National Bridges Authority, right? Of course, the new Demerara Harbor Bridge, the Mackenzie-Wismar Bridge that will be available in months' time, the new Borbies River Bridge, which will be available in another 2-3 years, the Abari Bridge, the Kanji Bridge, the Maikoni Bridge, the Mahiko Bridge, the intended new bridge at Kurpukari Crossing when that takes place, the bridge at Cane Grove, and then you have other bridges like the Denham Bridge, you know. So these are some of the bridges that could fall on. There will be others, of course. There will be others. But we need a dedicated National Bridges Authority. In the same way that you have a National Drainage and Irrigation Authority, a National Data Management Authority, and so on, that could you have a dedicated institution that will look at overall bridges, especially since this last bridge here is a very complicated one. It's a cable-stayed bridge, and for which we don't have in-house technology how to maintain such bridges. And so the earlier we set up such an authority and give them their mandate, is the better we will appreciate that maintenance is as important, if not more, than construction itself. All right, so that is on my take on this bridge and bridges generally. Right, so quickly I will move to a couple of minutes that left with this issue about our foreign exchange. Let me recall early that in a letter to the editor, Sabbath News, October the 7th, 2025, Neville December recalled the caution that was given to him by the late Haslin Paris, Buxtonian, Haslin Paris, former Deputy Prime Minister and Chairman of State Planning Board. He said that Paris cautioned him when decisions are taken without their systemic consequences being thought through. And he was recalling this admonition when he was commenting on Amanza Walton Desir's request to GCOM for information on the number of Commonwealth citizens who voted in 2025 elections, and her recommendation that Article 159(2)(b) of the Constitution be deleted to prevent Commonwealth citizens from participating in our elections. Of course, I didn't agree with his arguments because I felt his doomsday prediction that were we to delete Commonwealth citizens, all kinds of things will fall on us. It's not true. I think he conflated removal of Commonwealth citizens with removal of the country itself from the Commonwealth. And what he predicted will happen to us is more if we removed Guyana from the Commonwealth, not removing Commonwealth citizens from voting, in our elections. But the caution is well taken, and I would advise the same caution be exercised by President Ali in his 9-point response to the foreign exchange shortage problem in Guyana. You remember last week, I had indicated that there are unintended consequences of this 9 point, and it reminds you too much of the efforts that the PNC had to put in place in a time of severe shortage, and the huge controls, foreign exchange controls and credit controls that had to be put in place, that had a very debilitating impact on the economic performance of the country. And one would not think that in a so-called fastest growing economy in the world that has significantly more foreign exchange coming to it than what was coming in the 70s and 80s, one would hate to think that you have to revert to such draconian controls to stem what you think is causing the foreign currency problems in Guyana. And of course, also, I did indicate last week that if you don't know the root, if you don't go to the root of the problem, you will never be able to solve the problem. And my contention is that they have not gone to the root of the problem. Okay? And that in any case, foreign currency and its administration is part of the overall economy. It doesn't lie outside of the economy or on its own. It's part of the dynamic of managing the entire country. So you can't look at foreign currency and foreign currency administration and management outside of the framework of all your other policies, particularly your fiscal and monetary policies and your debt management policies. And in his 9 point that he put there, it is clear, that these weren't considered. He, and in any case, he met with bankers. Bankers are the end. They are the end. Okay? They are the end. End of this chain, if you want to call it that. And you can't have the tail wagging the dog. The government is who's in control of this economy, not the bankers. The government. And the government has to show it is in the control, that it has control of all the policies that go toward the determination of the rate. So let me look at some of the issues that were raised earlier, right? That were raised earlier. Um, or just let me go straight because the time is running out. Let me just quickly give you some idea about how foreign currency is formed, because a number of people also told me to explain it a bit more, because and I'm happy to do that. So at a simple level, suppose I go to the corner shop, as we used to call him, the neighborhood shop or the corner shop in Guyana, and I purchase a can of soda, or I don't want to use thing names because I know we use it like Pepsi. Give me a Pepsi or something beside. Let me call it soda because I think the Americans know it's soda too. Suppose I go to one mechanic shop store and say, hey, give me a bottle of Coke, as in Coca-Cola or Pepsi or any other drink, to be quiet. I am able to pay the owner of the shop in Guyana dollars, right? because the shop owner will accept Guyana dollars, which is the legal tender in Guyana, right? Which is the legal tender in Guyana. Guyana dollars is the legal tender in Guyana. And Guyana dollars is governed by laws, right? That makes it the legal tender. However, if I, a Guyanese, ship, let us say, plantain chips to United States or anywhere else out of Guyana, anywhere else external to Guyana, right? But let us stick with the United States, because you get the idea. The United States importer will pay in US dollars, which is the legal tender in United States. But he will not accept Guyana dollars. He will not accept Guyana dollars if he were to ship to me and I pay him. You understand? So in Guyana, I could pay with Guyana dollars. When I ship to my importer, the importer in United States, they pay in US dollars, which is the legal tender in United States. So the in international trade, right? Because this is what trade outside of Guyana is international. When Guyanese trade with the rest of the world and when the rest of the world trade with Guyana, that is international. That is what we call international trade. So in this whole business of international trade, there must be a means, right, to exchange one currency, in this case the Guyana dollars, for another called the US dollars. And this interplay is called the exchange rate, right? So we could say then the exchange rate is the price paid for the US dollars in Guyana dollars, right? It's the price paid for the US dollars in Guyana dollars, right? So exchange rate involves two currencies. What is called the base currency, which is the first currency shown in the exchange rate quotation. And then the other one is called the counter currency, which is the second currency. So you could be one Guyana dollar equals to 0.0000 cents United States, 0.0001 or 2 United States dollars, right? So in that case, the quotation will be Guyana dollars is first, that would be the base currency, and the second one, United States dollar, is the counter currency. Or you could have one US dollar equal to 230 Guyana dollars, right? So in this case, now the US currency is the base currency, and the Guyana dollar now becomes the counter currency. So when, let us say you get paid, right? So you supplied your US importer with plantain chips and they paid you, right? Well, of course, they're not going to send you the money by uh, they're not going to send you the cash by somebody who come back and give it to you. Well, technically that could happen, but let's deal strictly with these banks. So you would have had to provide them with a bank details and so on, right? So all commercial banks in Guyana, they have corresponding banks. They deal with banks internationally, whether it's in the States or Britain or whatever, right? So your US importer will pay what for those plantain chips that they say is $10. He will pay 10 US dollars, all right, to the particular bank address in United States that has a corresponding relationship with your local bank. Okay? And when your local bank receives notification that this 10 US dollars has been received in their account, in their commercial bank account with the US bank, they excuse me, they will then credit your local account with United States dollars. Sorry, with Guyana dollars. Sorry. With Guyana dollars. Okay? Now the rate that they will credit your account, right, is called the buying rate. In other words, then, they're buying from you the US dollars that has been credited to their account in the United States. They're buying from you. And that rate is called the buying rate. All right? It's from the bank's perspective. When you go to a bank and you carry your 100 US and ask them for Guyana dollars, they are buying the US dollars from you and they will offer you what is called the buying rate. The obverse is also true. When you go to that commercial bank and you give them 230 Guyana dollars, they will give you 1 US. I'm making this thing as simple as I can. They will give you 1 US dollar. And the rate that they are selling you this 1 US dollars, right? Because what they're doing is selling you 1 US dollars. It's called the selling rate. The selling rate. And get this, the selling rate is always greater than the buying rate. And the difference between the two rates is called the spread. The spread. Okay? And the spread really is revenue to the commercial bank. Help them with their expenses and so on. So you see, when you go into a bank, you see a board, if some of them put the board up. They will have buying and they'll have selling. The buying rate is always lower than the selling rate. And the difference between the two is called the spread. And of course, you could have what you call the average or mid rate, which is when you add the buying rate and the selling rate and you divide by 2, you could have the mid rate, right? Which is average between buying and selling. But that rate is not much interest to you, the customer, to the bank. What is of interest to you is the buying rate, the rate that your US dollars is exchanged at the bank or the cambio, and the selling rate, the rate at which the bank or the cambio sells you foreign currency. When things got rough in 2017, we instituted a fixed spread of $3, maximum $3, between the buying rate and the selling rate. So you could charge any rate you want. But if you bought at 217, you could only sell at a maximum 220, and so on. I don't know if it's still in place. I don't know. So many things have been changed since we left. But that helped to stabilize the run. I noticed some cambios in particular that have spreads of 10 and 9, 10, 11, $12. So they're buying what you call cheap and selling dear. And it all has to do with the demand and supply of foreign currency, right? As you can see. Now, let me let you into how our rate has evolved since 1981. I'll go as far as I can today, and then we'll continue next week, right? So, because sometimes we have to do quite a bit of work here, and I don't think we will finish today. But so in June 1981, the Ghana dollar, we had a rough time. We really had a rough time. Let me back up a bit. We had a rough time. For a long time, our rate was pegged to the pound sterling. And many of us old timers will remember exercise books at the back of which had £1 480, £2 960, £3 1440, right? 1440, yes, and so on, right? 1920, £4 920, and so on. We had to learn that because we coming after the British store. Early in the 70s, we switched. And I think we eventually had a currency where $1 was pegged to $2.55 US for quite a while. In the early 70s. And that was before the oil crisis hit in 1973. Right? That is before the oil crisis hit in 1973. But we had a fairly stable exchange rate. And even before in the 60s, we were linked to the Eastern Currency Board, ECCB. And I think that's before we had a Bank of Guyana. Yes, before we had a Bank of Guyana. And do you know there was a British Guyana $2? A note, a British Guyana $2 note. I don't know if any is around. If anybody has one, they could put it on the chat. You can put it here, let us know. But there was a British Guyana $2 note. So don't think somebody is trying to play with you if they said, I will bet you $2, a $2 note. It's so and so. Yes, there used to be one, but it's out of print. It's out of print. And I think I might have dealt with this some time back in terms of the development of currency notes in Guyana. But anyway, so you had that for a long time. But then, after the 1 year or substantial increase in the sugar prices in the early 70s, Ghana ran into trouble by 1978. Serious trouble. Somebody mentioned that sugar prices were here to stay. Some people said it's the late Dr. Fred Suglio, who was advising the Bonham government at the time, claimed that sugar prices were here to stay. And probably on the strength of that advice, there was this large expansion. That is why history is always important. And where we're going today, we seem not to understand or know history. Right? And so there was this massive expansion in the economy. We were doing Upper Demerara, the hydroelectricity project, that massive, that at that time was estimated to cost $1 billion US. That was eventually crimped because of Venezuela's objection and the World Bank pulling the loan that they were supposed to help us with that. We had national service that was expanded, right? So you had a lot of expansion taking place, but then sugar prices collapsed by 1978, and we ran ourselves into huge balance of payments problems, which we delayed too long in solving. And as a result, a stable currency, where only one rate more or less existed, became highly unstable with the development of a parallel market. That's how the parallel market started. Currency became, official currency became very scarce at the rate. Government failed to adjust the rate in keeping with the supply, the diminished supply, because not only at that time did sugar prices uh, fall into the gutter, so to speak, but you had the advent of the rise of oil prices, unprecedented rise in oil prices that triggered an oil crisis. So we had that twin whammy that would have affected the supply of foreign currency in such a short space of time. But we failed to adjust. We failed to adjust timely. And in the face of diminishing supply of foreign currency, we allowed the official rate to remain at 255. Hence the development then of this parallel market economy. And over time, several other rates developed, implied or otherwise, because every strategy was used to try to find avenues of increasing the supply of foreign exchange or diminishing the demand for foreign exchange. Hence, on the one hand, you had restrictions, bannings, then price controls, and then you had counter trade transactions, which is a form of barter, right? You sell me back, I sell you bauxite, you sell me glass, or you sell me coconut oil or some sort of thing. Counter trade. And in every counter trade transaction, there was an implied rate of exchange. Okay? Then, of course, you had other avenues and other rates and so on. So that's a quick background. So that 255, we waited until June the 2nd, 1981. June the 2nd, 1981, before we began pegging the Guyana dollar to a composite basket of currencies. Composite means a basket comprised the currencies of our major trading partners, right? And that basket had in US dollars, the pound sterling, the Deutschmark, the Trinidad and Tobago dollar, because Trinidad and Tobago was a major trading partner of ours, because remember that's where we got our petroleum from, and we sold them rice at premium prices. Okay? It also had in the Japanese yen. And the US dollar was the intervention currency that was used to determine our exchange rate. So you have a weighted basket there, a composite basket, weighted basket. And out of that, we'll get the Trinidad, the US currency used as an intervention currency to determine the rate. And as a result, that rate was fixed at US $1 equal $3. Remember, that's 1981. We have come a long way, ain't it? 19 and 25 is 44. 44 years on, we have gone from US $1 equal 3 Ghana dollars to now US 1 equal 230 or thereabout. So we've come a long way indeed. Then on the 11th of January 1984, the same basket, this composite basket, was adjusted to include, right? So now the basket is now comprised of the pound sterling, the Deutschmark, the Japanese yen, the French franc, the Netherlands guilder, with the US dollar as the intervention currency. And now, instead of having this fixed exchange rate at $3, the rate is now adjusted weekly. I can't say it's floating yet, but it's being adjusted weekly. So it's not static. It's being adjusted weekly for whatever losses that may have taken place within the basket. right? Thus, between October 1984 and January 1987, the exchange rate was maintained in the range $4.15 to $1 to $4.40 to $1. And this is the official exchange rate. So this is now like a managed float. And we can come back to managed float next week. So we're allowing the rate to float between 415 and a lower margin and 440 a upper margin. This is the official rate, by the way. As to what level of transaction is taking place at this band is anybody's guess. Because I can tell you, you couldn't walk into a commercial bank and buy foreign currency at 415 or 440. But this is the rate that was being quoted by the government, the official rate. Then on the 19th of January 1987, 3 years afterwards, they abandoned this managed float story. It ain't working. It's not working simply because the supply of foreign currency is not there. A rate must reflect demand and supply. It mustn't just be quoted. It must reflect what is happening on the ground. I don't even want to use the word market because we don't really have markets here. We have too much interventions in the so-called market here and too much manipulation of that so-called market. But anyhow, on the 10th of January, on the 19th of January 1987, there was a massive devaluation of the Guyana currency from $4.40, which was the upper band of the float, to $10 US. $10. That's a massive devaluation. That's more than 2 times the old rate overnight. Then on the 3rd of April 1989, just over 2 years afterwards, the Guyana dollar was further devalued. The Guyana dollar was further devalued to 33 to 1. 33 to 1 US. And again, that's more than 3 times the old rate of 10. Then again, on the 14th of June 1990, that's how things had deteriorated and was deteriorating rapidly. On the 14th of June, just over a year after the previous devaluation, the Guyana dollar was further devalued to 45 to 1. 45 to 1. And not only that, reality has now stepped in. At this official rate, only transactions relating to the payments for oil imports, external debt service, and the export of rice and sugar could be transacted at this 45 to 1. All others, it was a fight for self. Fight for self, right? You probably have to go to the parallel market and get your currency, if any is there. And then, just over 6 months after, on the 21st of February 1991, the Guyana dollar was further devalued to $101.75, ostensibly uniting the rate with that was prevailing in the parallel market at that time. Can you imagine? You had an official rate of 45, and the rate in the parallel market was $101.75. $101.75. So this massive devaluation, just over 6 months after, from 45 to 101.75, right? And by the 25th of February 1991, the exchange rate was fixed weekly, right? The exchange rate was fixed weekly. But again, with tremendous lag, because when the rate was when we unified the rate in February, it sent a signal to the parallel market that we were ready and willing to take them on. Because previously we had abandoned, we had ignored them. We had ignored them, even though nobody can get currency at the official level. We had ignored them. So with this unification, we sent a signal. However, in less than a week, the parallel market responded. And why? It is alleged, it is alleged that when we sold the old Ghana Telecommunication Corporation, we had left substantial cash and debtors, including a number of government institutions, corporations, and so on. Where obviously to have this person. As soon as the newcomers came in, not only did they go on a wide cutoff if you didn't pay, but they had this cash that it is claimed we left there. And allegedly went to the parallel market and offloaded all this cash for US dollars. And so within a short space of time of our unifying, the rate had collapsed from 101.75 to I think 125 or 128. Be that as it may, the rate continued to slide until some level of stability was reached after the rate would have attained somewhere in the region of 200. And there has been relative stability in that 200 plus range for a long time until fairly recently, and I say recently being like about 3 years ago or so, when there have been noticeable slides in the rate with short periods of appreciation in the rate. Let us stop there today, and we will continue on this journey about exchange rate evolution and all the different causes of the problems that we seem to be having today, even though we are a so-called oil economy earning billions of US annually, but still find ourselves in a Trinidad type situation where we have to enforce controls reminiscent of the 1970s, 80s, and 90s when we had the real difficulties of finding things. I'll leave you all with one of them. Y'all remember Saijan Plaza? That's how things went. Saijan Plaza, where after freeing up some of the foreign currency, because as Guyanese, you could not hold foreign currency. You had to sell it to a bank. You could not hold foreign currency. But things had got so bad, they allowed you to hold foreign currency as long as you didn't get it from a bank. So if auntie sent you a little $5 or $10 and so on, you could use it and you could go to Saijan Plaza with your foreign currency and buy stuff that was not available in the other in the outside world there. Outside world mean outside of Saijan Plaza, because in Saijan Plaza you could get all the fancy things that you were accustomed to back in the early 70s. But now you got to pay US currency for it. Now you got to pay US currency. Right? So I'm leaving you with Saijan Plaza until next week, when we will continue our journey on foreign currency. All right. So I hope you enjoy this odyssey that we're on. And until next week. Bye.
loving. Bring it all close to me. Yeah, 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 yeah. I know I laughed when you left, but now I know I only hurt myself. Hey, bring it to me. Bring your sweet loving. Bring it all home to me. Yeah, 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 yeah. I'll give you jewelry and money too. That ain't all. That ain't all I'll do for you. Hey, you bring it to me. Bring your sweet loving. Bring it all home to me. Yeah, 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 yeah. You know I'll always be your slave till I'm buried in my grave. Oh, bring it to me. Bring your sweet loving. Bring it all home to me. Yeah, 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 yeah. One thing I tried to treat you right, but you stayed out till night. But I'll forgive you. Bring it to me. Bring your sweet loving. Bring it all home to me. Yeah, 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 yeah. Someday, some way, you'll realize that you've been blind. Yes, darling, you're going to need me again. It's just a matter of time. Go on, go on, until you reach the end of the line. But I know you pass my way again. It's just a matter of time. After I gave you everything I had, you laughed and called me a clown. Remember, in your search for fortune and fame, what goes up must come down. I know, I know that one day you'll wake up and find that my love was true love.
Thank you for staying tuned to the program. You were listening to former Minister of Finance, Vincent Jordan, on the economics and the economy and things in the economy. When you listen and you learn and you reflect, I think the song which I just stopped is one that suits the occasion. Someday you will realize. Someday you're gonna want me. Someday. I think that song was being sung during the Voice of Forbes Burnham. I really think the song was being sung in the Voice of Forbes Burnham. Dedicated to all those Guyanese who caused Burnham from birth till death and still causing him maybe to resurrection. Because when you listen to the facts as presented by Mr. Jordan, I don't think you have any other option but to give the man his kudos. Give the man his kudos. Likewise, I don't think you have any option than to give the PNC its kudos. I see Ali is talking about feasibility study for light rail along the highway. Is it East Bank? West Bank? Somewhere. Can't remember exactly. But he's now talking about light rail. The AP and Young Patterson were there long before now. So I know what feasibility study is talking about. I think he should just go back to the records or call Patterson. Who knows? They might be liming bodies or drinking bodies or they have mates or, maybe they do deals to get in the back rooms and so on and so forth. But just reach out to Patterson and see what he has to have, what he has to offer. Good. I am leaving you. I'm leaving you now. It is 12 minutes to the 10 o'clock hour. And so I'm leaving you, but I hope you would come back tomorrow. And so I will leave you with Stand By Me. Ben E. King. Stand by me. Do that. Let's stand by each other's side.
When the night has come and the land is dark and the moon is the only light we'll see. No, I won't be afraid. Oh, I won't be afraid. Just as long as you stand by me. So darling, stand by me. Oh, stand by me. Oh, stand by me. Stand by me. If the sky that we look upon should tumble and fall, or the mountain should crumble to the sea, I won't cry, no, I won't shed a tear, just as long as you stand by me. And darling,